Hey guys, today we're talking about a product that came out about 4 months ago, almost 5 months ago, geez. Time is flying this year. And that is the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro. And so this came out in the spring. It is a expensive piece of hardware, but you know, it's got this kind of like floating design, really nice keyboard on it. And I've been using it since it came out. I ordered it right away because I use my iPad Pro to do basically everything. A lot of my videos are recorded on a Mac because that's convenient for me, but I do almost all of my actual work on an iPad. And so I wanted to use this because when you spend all of your time on an iPad, you want to be as flexible as possible, you want as much power as possible, you just want it to be the best experience. And this seemed like an expensive way to do it. Expensive, yes, but it seemed like it was going to give you a great experience. And so I've been using it every day on my iPad, and I wanted to kind of show you how it's working for me, whether I like it, whether I don't, whether I think it's worth the pretty hefty price tag. The 12.9 inch one is $350, the 11 inch one is $300. So you really have to, I mean, that's how much a regular iPad costs. So you really have to want it and really feel like you get the benefits that it entails. So yeah, let's take a look at what I love about it, what I don't love about it, and kind of where I could see this product going in the future. Let's take a look. Okay, so the primary thing you want to know about the Magic Keyboard is how is typing on it. And I'm happy to report that typing is great. Typing feels good. The keys have the perfect amount of travel for me. It's definitely a low profile key. Obviously this isn't a mechanical keyboard or anything, but it feels really good to type on. It's really satisfying. You get just the right amount of click. It's a little noisier than I'd like in some cases, but most of the time it's totally fine, and it sounds great. It feels great. It's my favorite keyboard to type on my iPad by far. Then there's the trackpad. So the trackpad is interesting because the trackpad is really small, and that was kind of a thing to get used to at first, but it's totally enough for the way the cursor works on iPadOS. And not only do I really like the trackpad, I think Apple's implemented it incredibly well and in a way that lets you kind of go into this hybrid mode where you're using the trackpad, the keyboard, the Apple Pencil Touch. Like, you can easily and seamlessly jump between these, and it feels totally natural. The system is keeping up. It's not like some weird thing where like you are using the cursor and then you like tap on something and the cursor like zips over there like you do like on Windows touchscreens. It's nothing like that. It feels really good, really natural. Apple did a great job with this. And then there's the build quality. The build quality is fantastic. It's really, really rugged. It's really tough. It's heavy. I'll talk about that in a second. But it just feels really solid to type on. It feels good in the lap. It feels really good on a desk. And like, you just never feel like it's going to tip over. It does a really fantastic job of kind of being this solid device, especially compared to the smart keyboard that came before. It really feels more solid than that and is a really, really solid laptop experience. And of course, I'd be remiss to skip over the power plug. Over here, there's a Usbc port. It only accepts power, but it powers it pretty well. I usually use this port whenever I'm charging while I'm using the iPad, just because it's a little less awkward. I really like having this here. But inevitably, it's not perfect. What is bad about the iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard? Well, the number one thing that really bothers me, and this is really, it's totally aesthetic, but this thing gets dirty really easily. I'm going to try to show it here, but like, there's just grease that gets on it. It kind of wears away. It's not as pristine as you would think, especially since I got this in April and have been using it exclusively in my house. I haven't traveled with it. I haven't taken it to a coffee shop or anything because it's 2020. And it's, you know, kind of, it's not pristine. Like, even if I try to wipe it off, it's not perfect. I'd really love to see Apple use a different material than this in the future. Now, I did mention earlier that the iPad is really steady in this. It's really stable. And part of that is because it's really hefty. Like, it's a thick machine, and it adds some heft to your iPad that you may not love all the time. Now, I use it all around the house. I move it around with this, and I'm just used to the weight at this point, but it's going to add a considerable amount of weight to the iPad. If you use the iPad on its own, it's going to add a ton, and if you are used to the Smart Keyboard Folio that came before, it's a lot over that too. So be aware that because of the way this is built, because of the way that they prioritize stability and everything on top of everything else, it's going to be a hefty device. It's going to add some heft to the iPad. Just be aware of it. It's not the end of the world, but it is definitely a downside. Sometimes I do pick it up and I'm like, man, this thing's heavy. And finally, one of the things we really like about Mac laptops is that you can open them with one hand. A lot of PC laptops, you can start to do that now too. With the iPad Pro and the Magic Keyboard, you definitely cannot. It's just the weight distribution, the way the magnets work, the rigidity of the hinge, like you just can't do it. So it's a two-hand operation. It's a little more effort than I wish it was. I understand why it's that way, but it's not as seamless as opening a MacBook. So what do I want to see from the next model of the Magic Keyboard? Well, honestly, I don't think there's much of a rush for Apple to do this. It just came out a few months ago, so it's brand new. Even if they do like an annual update, we're still not even halfway to the next model. But if they do, I'd love to see a couple things added. So the first thing I'd love to see is a second USB-C port. So right now we have one on the one side of it. I'd love another one on the other side. I'd also love it, and this may need an update to the Smart Connector, or it may need a second Smart Connector. I don't really know exactly how that's gonna work, but I'd love it if they could do data transfer as well as power delivery. The power delivery limitation right now isn't the end of the world, but it does feel like it should be able to do all the things that a normal USB-C plug should do. So that's one thing I'd love to see. The other thing I'd love to see is for them to find a way to make the device lighter. Now I know a lot of the reason that the device is so solid today and is such a nice experience is because of how hefty it is. But it is hefty, it is heavy, and it's a lot heavier than what you're used to. So I'd love for the next version to have it be lighter and as stable as it is today. Now I know maybe that's impossible, maybe the physics aren't there, but that's what Apple does. Apple surprises us, they find clever ways to do this stuff. So I'd love to see them find a way to get around this limitation of make it a little lighter than it is today, but keep it as stable and nice to use and everything. So that's what I'd really love to see. I'd also love to see them use a different material. So the material that they have now, I can see why they use it, but it's not as good as it should be. It's even when I was doing my first impressions, like after using it for a day, it was hard for me to get photos of it that looked really crisp because it had already gotten a little out of sorts. So after 4 months, it looks a little rough. It's just never going to be pristine again. And it would be really great if they were able to find a material that holds up, looks nice, and is just great all around. So do I recommend you buy one of these? It's real expensive. It's a really expensive device. So it's kind of one of those things where some people will say, I bought these $10,000 speakers and they're so good. You're gonna love them. They're totally worth every penny. And it's like, I don't know if I want to spend 10 grand on speakers. So is it worth it? For me, it is. I work on my iPad all day long. I do a ton of work on it. It's really important to me to have a great experience and never feel like my iPad is slowing me down. So to be able to use the Magic Keyboard is great. To be able to have trackpad support when I want it is great. Like I used a trackpad connected over Bluetooth and it worked okay, but it really changed the game when I got to use it with the iPad just built into the Magic Trackpad. So it's really a decision you have to make on your own. I would say it is everything that it claims to be. So if you see the sales pitch, if you see what Apple says about it and you're like, yeah, I could go for that, then it's probably the right thing for you. Save up the money and go ahead and get it. But if you're not sure about it, if you don't use your iPad that much, if you don't use your iPad that much and think this will get you over the hump, maybe it will, but I wouldn't count on that, so consider that when you're making your buying choice. But that's it for today. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff, and then I will see you here next time on A Better Computer.